This is RuggaMatrix International, the world's leading independent rugby podcast, quoted more than anyone else. It's no wonder that our major partner is Strike, Australia's leading provider of Bluetooth car kits, so you can stay safe in your car and avoid hefty fines. So go hands-free with Strike. Enter the code RuggaMatrix and you'll get 10% off. Go to strike.com.au to get your discount. RuggaMatrix also brought to you by mybean.com.au. We sell at roasters' prices. Let's get it on. Hello and welcome to RuggaMatrix International. I'm your host, Jero Sand, episode 202. And as you look to my left, your right, Mark Cashman isn't here this morning. He's had car trouble, and which is a bit of a shame. But anyway, I'm just going to click the fingers, and there he is, frozen from some time in the past, and he'll be there through the whole show. In fact, this is probably the most sense Mark Cashman will make all year on the program. Really looking forward to our special guest because we're going to the Northern Hemisphere. We're going to talk all things Premiership, the Challenge Cup, and of course the Six Nations. Huge weekend, Six Nations, as well as a bit of Super Rugby, and maybe talk about the Southern Hemisphere tests coming up as well. But as we look over my shoulder, it's the former Australian second rower and now captain of Exeter in the UK, Dean Mumm. Dean, thanks for joining us on RuggaMatrix. It's Monday night your time, and I appreciate you making the time for us.
No, mate, nice to be here. Thank you for having me on board. Episode 203. I mean, you certainly gone through a few guests, but I managed to...
It could be 203.
202,
sorry,
go
apologies, too long.
But no, it's nice to get the call up.
Wonderful. Hey, going okay, Exeter? Are you enjoying it? How long have you been there now?
Well, we're to about my second, going on my third season now, so two and a bit years in living here. But I came over in September, so I was straight into my first season. A bit loving it really. It's so Exeter, for those that don't know, it's about three hours southwest of London. That's by train, a little bit longer by car. But really rural area. It's sort of, if you've got your tweed jacket and your Labrador and your Land Rover Defender and you fit in down here. But mate, it's a bit like, it's probably a bit like living in Orange or something for those in Australia or New South Wales as a comparison. But lovely place to live, really relaxed and love their footy down this way.
Well, I certainly do, and it is a beautiful part of England, there's no doubt about it. But to be captain of Exeter, that's must be a huge honour, given it's a very historical place, Exeter, and I know like Bath, who you're going to play this weekend, a very historic part of the UK as well, but it must be a huge honour to lead the side.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know whether the captain before me was an Irish guy, but certainly before that, I mean, I think most of the guys that have been able to lead this team have been people sort of well entrenched in the local community and come through that way. And I certainly haven't been that, but it's from that end, it's a real honour for me to be able to do that. So particularly second season doing that now, and I was sort of probably pretty fortunate to be able to take the captaincy after only having been there for 1 year. So it's a job that I'm very honoured to have, and one that you find new things about yourself and how you deal with different situations.
How have you enjoyed the tight five slog, Dean? Obviously, when the winter months approach, it becomes very hard on the body. But I'm saying after all those years with the Waratahs, Wallabies, and Sydney University, you'd love it.
Yeah, mate, I think I'm probably the lightest second row in the comp at 110 kilos, and I'm probably giving up a good 5 to 10 kilos on pretty much most people. But listen, they still keep me around. But it really is one of those things over here where you need a different game in autumn and spring than you do in winter. And it's just purely because the conditions change what you can do. You've got a lot of rain, a lot of really sort of strong gale winds. So you've got to be able to play this forward game, and you've got to be able to play it well. Secondary to that, compared to Southern Hemisphere, the fans love it. I mean, I don't really get it, but they're genuinely keen on a scrum and a maul and fighting it out that way. But you look at the teams that are really successful this year and in the previous years, Northampton, Bath, Saracens, to a lesser extent, but the teams that do well are those teams that can master that tight five and that forward play. And so the reality is, if you want to play in this comp, you've got to be able to mix it with them.
But isn't that great though? I mean, you came from hard and fast grounds in the Southern Hemisphere where maybe forward play wasn't appreciated, but you're going to a place and being at a place that does appreciate it. Do you think that's good?
Yeah, no, I do. That's what's good about rugby internationally, as opposed to just being, having one type of game for all occasions. I mean, the way rugby's played, historically in South Africa is different to the way it's been played in Australia and New Zealand, and the way it's played in the UK. France, well, even the UK and France is different now in the way they go about things. So, I think that sort of variability is what makes when you watch what makes Test rugby so interesting and so fascinating, is that you come up against teams with different strengths and weaknesses, and the ability to get your strategy right and the ability to adapt from one week to the other is vital. And that's what makes it fun. I have really enjoyed it, actually.
Well, obviously you would have enjoyed last week's result as captain as well, to the stoop, and a good win over the Quins. And I think the good thing about the victory is that it's your first away win since November, so that's really important, and it puts you in that fourth spot.
Yeah, we were running. We started the season really well. We were running reasonably hot. We'd won eight straight, which was a good result for us. Across the various competitions, and we came through to winter, and how I was speaking before about how you need that variability to be able to play different games. It's probably not something we've had in Exeter, and something we've had to really develop. So, we had a lean period through Christmas. We lost four, and all in the premiership. And so to get this win last weekend, to get an away win, is really important, because you don't bank on those points. So points you get away from home are vital, and particularly given how tight the comp is. So we're running equal third now on 44 points, I think. Right. But there's only a 2-point drop to 7. So it really is a really tight competition, and wherever you can grab points, particularly away from home, is vital in the run home.
You share 44 points with Saracens, so Bath on 47, and the Saints on 56. So last year's finalists are still up there, and what a final that was. Hopefully you'll get up there with Exeter this year. Interesting game of the weekend. A couple of early yellow cards, but you came through.
Yeah.
I think. Were you worried about the discipline early?
Well, I wasn't pleased with it, I suppose, but the reality was, I think we looked at the game today. I think we had 34% possession. Territory. So we were under the hammer a lot, and we had 3 yellow cards, and then we came out with a win by 8. So that's not your, or 8 or whatever it was, but it's not your traditional course of events. So 2 early yellow cards, getting down to 13 men, you can't play like that, and consequently we conceded points. But I think that the pleasing thing, the yellow cards weren't necessarily for foul play or anything. It was genuinely an efforts to stop tries, and I think our attitude was spot on. And you always hear the cliche that defence is the pinnacle of attitude when it comes to rugby, and our defence was very good. So it's probably what got us through that match, to be honest.
Yeah, and obviously Henry Slade's kicking as well, outstanding, a try conversion, about 6 penalties.
Yeah, Henry, we've got probably 4 or 5 young 20, I think they're 21 now, former English under-20 World Cup winners. And these guys are seriously good. Been lucky to see quite a bit of talent throughout playing, and I'm getting a bit longer in the tooth now. So you've seen a few, but these guys are seriously good players. And our 10, 12, 13 are all 21. Throw in our 6 who's 21, and a hooker as well. I think it's a very exciting place for Exeter to be in terms of having this wealth of talent that not only is young but has played so much together as well. So you've already got combinations sort of built in.
Dean, on this show we've been on the ban the box kick campaign. I was very happy to see Danny Care's box kick charge down in your game, and that resulted in a try to Exeter. So well done, mate.
Yeah, thank you.
That was Ben White, wasn't it?
I kind of agree with you. I know it sort of takes away a little bit of the fun element, isn't it? You don't see the ball move too much with a box kick. I mean, Jake White's obviously a big fan of it. He sort of pioneered it for a long time, but him and the Bulls have made a great success out of it. But
I don't know if
sadly,
we had Dave Dennis on the show late last year, and he told us that the box kick's banned at the TARS. They don't do it at all.
Well, there you go. Unfortunately, we employ it a lot. But it's again quite a you talk about that 10-man rugby and you sort of have to play over here sometimes, and the box kick's a big part of it. I can see the use for it, but I mean I wasn't too upset to see Danny Care failing whatever he does, to be honest.
So it was Ben White with the try as well. So he did a good job too and raced across the line. As I was watching the highlights, it was pretty good. So you're doing well, but you got a massive game this week against Bath, haven't you?
Yeah, we do. I mean, in terms of the history of Exeter Bath, we'd never, we'd played them for many years, and we'd never beaten them till last year. Still, we haven't beaten them in the premiership. So it's a huge game for us. Bath coming off 2 losses against, admittedly against Sarries and Northampton, respectively, tough opponents, but a huge game for us if we're going to bounce up and really, as I said, extend ourselves away from that bunch that's collected there around between third and fourth. And if we can manage to get a win, not only will it be historical and pretty exciting for our fans, because they're pretty bad at the best of times, but this would really send them around the bend. And but a win would put us into second. So I mean it's a big weekend for us.
Dean, your thoughts then on Sam Burgess, who's really doing a great job with Bath in the centres. I know Stuart Lancaster says he's a long shot to make the World Cup squad, but what are your thoughts on his progress? And you'll find out firsthand pretty soon.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. He's a long shot, but clearly the guy can play. Whatever he's done, obviously he was outstanding at league. Came sort of left quite a legacy there, and has come into Bath. I mean, it was never going to be easy for him, really. I mean, I think if you go back and you look at the way Sonny Bill, he dominates rugby now, but it took him many years to do that. He didn't put himself under pressure. He went to Toulon. He was under Tana Umaga and sort of his stewardship getting him done, but it took him a good couple of years to get right. And I mean, for Burgess, for people to come in and expect him to be a good outside centre, a good 12 straight away is probably a little bit unrealistic. I've seen him play. I've played against him, and we've sort of seen him play a couple of A-level, couple of lower-level games as well. And he clearly breaks the line. He's got a great offload game, but there's that wider passing game. He's probably lacking a little bit at the moment, but I've got no doubt that he'll be quite the machine when he sorts everything out.
Well, Sandy Park's the venue for the game. How much does home ground advantage play for you?
Yeah, it's a big thing for us. Exeter is sitting 3 hours from London. Bath's our closest game. That's an hour and a half. I mean, it doesn't sound much in terms of Australia, but travelling away and travelling further down to the southwest, it sort of does make a bit of a difference, because we all travel on buses here, so every trip's a good couple of hours on a bus. So if we can make people come here, make it difficult for them to play down here, that's really important. Also, we've got some, as I said, we've got some amazing fans.
Yeah, great support. So, I mean, it sounds like they've really accepted you there. What's it like living in the community?
Yeah, man, it's good, mate. It's one team town, really. We've got a football team or a soccer team here, Exeter City, but they play 4th division. And they're not racing up. Oh, they're doing all right, but they're not racing up the divisions. But we're sort of one team town. So you get, I think, exciting. We get discounts at the local butcher. You get looked after where you go. So there's only two nightclubs in town, so you got to behave yourself because everything gets back to the coach pretty swiftly. So it's made us fun.
Well, it could be more fun for you when the weather changes in April when you get to the quarterfinals of the Challenge Cup. Obviously, the landscape's changed with the Heineken Cup no more, but at least you're involved in the quarterfinals of the Challenge tournament. You're looking forward to that one.
Yeah, I mean I think you play three competitions here, so to be, all you do at the start of the year is give yourselves opportunities to be playing at the back end, and we've been lucky this year. We've done okay, so we've given ourselves opportunity to play in all the quarterfinals or the semi-finals of the relative competitions. Well, premiership aside at the moment, but to have a quarterfinal against Newcastle at home is a really big deal for us as a club. I mean, most of the areas, given we've only been in the premiership for 5 years now, most of these areas we're sort of breaking some new ground. So I think this is the first home quarterfinal we've ever had. And to get those games, to get big games and bring it in front of a home crowd, it's really important for us as a club, and it's really important for our supporters.
As a captain, you deal obviously very closely with the coach. What's Rob Baxter like to deal with?
Yeah, Rob's great. I mean, I've really enjoyed working with him. He's very straightforward. He's the Baxter family is somewhat legends of Exeter Rugby, and his old man was captain. He was captain. Rob's brother was captain as well. And the main suite, like as in the chairman's suite at the club, is named after the Baxters. So he is the culture. You know what I mean? So it's nice to get in there, and he's got a really balanced approach to the way he goes about things. So whilst we train very professionally and our aspects and S&C and all that's is bang on, there's also really amateur approaches. So every bus ride we go on, every trip home, there's beers for us to enjoy. He doesn't get too up and down in terms of losses and wins. You celebrate, but you don't go over the top. You also don't go over the top when you have a loss. So it's a really nice balanced approach to it, and he's one of those guys that sort of really lives by his word and is very, very truthful and very honest in what he says. And so it's always good and enjoyable working with someone like that.
So when you were made captain, Dean, what was the reasoning behind it? What were you? Everyone gets a spiel when that appointment's made. What did they see in you to make you captain?
Yeah, it's a tough question, mate. I've never been given that one. I don't know. I think I provide a different perspective on it, really. Having a Southern Hemisphere approach and being involved in professional environments and high performance professional environments. Being at the Waratahs, obviously we were involved together, mate, and lucky to be at the Wallabies as well. For a club that had only just come up from the championship a couple of years before, I think having maybe sort of those cultural elements and that experience in high performance environments was something that I could add to the team. But hopefully I also add something in terms of just having a very honest and true culture and being able to tell people when it needs to be lifted up or when they're doing something really well as well. So a tough question for me to answer that. One I've not really had, but I had to get a bit reflective on you.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry I had to put you on the spot. It's almost like giving yourself a rap, which I know you don't like doing, and you come from a very strong lineage of rugby family. Of course, your brother Greg and your dad and great-grandfather, or your grandfather as well, all the way back to New Zealand. So it's pretty strong, mate. Do you get much in terms of visits from the family?
Yeah, they do. I mean, we've been really lucky, actually. I've only managed to get home once in the 2.5 years I've been here for a week for my brother's wedding. So we've been really lucky, both my family and my wife's family, that they've come over and seen us, and we haven't really felt that too homesick on that front. and also, we've got a little bit of family in London, so just having someone you can give a buzz without having to work out time zones or whether Australia's daylight saving or not, it's pretty nice sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to managing the squad, have you thought that Rob's been able to do that with the number of competitions you have to compete in? Because there's a big possibility come later in the year you're going to have to deal with Challenge Cup playoffs and the Premiership.
Yeah, I mean, they do go back to back. I mean, I think the LV Cup over here plays a really important role in allowing teams to rotate their squads. I mean, I think a while back in Australia there's a big question about whether rotation was a policy that was needed. But when you play a competition as in Super Rugby and you've got 15, 18 rounds with one, maybe two buys in there, rotation is not really a big issue. But over here, looking at 35 game seasons, 3 different competitions, it's hard to get through a year without some period of solid injuries. You can normally get hit, and you just hope that's not in one position. So you hope your hookers or your second rowers or your inside backs don't get hit. And so you need to rotate. You need to keep people fresh because there's going to be a need to include everyone over a season. Just going back to the LV Cup, that's used over here predominantly as a zone to blood new players to bring in the young talent, and it's something I think works quite well. So they give aspect of you give them a opportunity at top level rugby without perhaps some of the pressures associated with Premiership Rugby or Heineken Cup. So it's nice to have that sort of staged approach where you can ease people in, you can bring in a little bit of talent, and they get to mix in with the wider squad.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think of this idea? I was thinking about it last night when I was just preparing for the show, Dean, and I thought, what if Australia, New Zealand, South Africa had their own Premiership type competitions and came together in a European Cup or Challenge style during the season as well? I mean, could you do it that way? And that way, I think you get the more. I think the problem for Australia in particular is that we don't have enough of those high quality matches regularly. So an example too is like this: for a whole month, the Waratahs basically play one game away from home, and we don't see them until March. I think late March.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the really good things here. Is that you have a regular home and away game. So, which I found weird coming over because in Super Rugby you might be away, as you say, for 3 or 4 weeks without having to be home. So for continuity of fans, it's hard. You don't see your team for a while, and fortunes and things can go up and down in the space of 3 or 4 weeks. So a team you might have seen 4 or 5 weeks ago at home that was riding well might not be so good. So your crowds are also a bit fluctuate with that. So, I mean, I think having a regular home and away system in Australia and individual comp certainly has merit. Particularly if you get to have the Wallabies and those guys playing at the top level, playing with those guys that are borderline club Super Rugby, I think there's some real merit in that because you don't really get that at the moment unless the guys, the fringe guys, for lack of a better word, get the opportunity to be involved in a Super Rugby squad. So they don't get to learn from experience. They don't get to see how professional, say, someone that's played 80 caps needs to be for him to keep playing. They have to try and learn that from anecdotes or from something else rather than purely learning from experience. So, I mean, there's lots of questions raised. I mean, sort of financially viable, all that sort of stuff. But purely under merit, I think it's a really good idea. And because the idea of the Heineken Cup and that sort of top tier competition as well, which is based on merit, it's based on coming in the top 3 or 4 in your competition, it works really well. And when there was all this talk about them fiddling with the competition last year, they eventually came back to the same structure because it wasn't broken. It works really well.
Certainly does. As a second rower, thoughts on Kane Douglas at Leinster? Obviously very disappointed to see him leave the Australian setup, as we were when you left, Dean, but obviously Australia's second row stocks have struggled since you guys left. Thoughts on Kane and how he's going over there?
Yeah, I haven't seen Kane. I haven't seen Kane play too much, but from my understanding, we've got a guy from Dublin here who's we've actually got Johnny Sexton's little brother playing for us. He doesn't look anything like Johnny. He's got about 15, 20 kilos on him, and he's carrying a couple of tyres around his waist, but he doesn't know his stuff about Leinster rugby. But yeah, from all accounts, Kano's doing pretty well over there, and I sort of was lucky enough to be playing when Kane came through the Waratahs and can see what a great talent he was and what a great talent he developed into. And I think Australian rugby is worse for not having him there. Second row stocks aren't brilliant in Australia at the moment. Certainly aren't as deep as say 4 years ago in the World Cup before, when you had Sharpie, Rob Simmons, Mark Chisholm, Dan Vickerman came back, James Horwell in there as well. I mean, you had a bunch of guys there that had probably 30, 40 caps, experience going into World Cup, respectively, each person. And I think now you take Rob Simmons and James Horwell, they have 50 caps each, roughly about that. But then there's a big drop to Sam Carter on 9 or something. So you just don't have that depth of experience as perhaps we do. And Kano probably would have filled that void very well. But I mean, I also understand for him, and now having been overseas, that perhaps he just wanted to come and enjoy. He had a tough period off the field as well last couple of years, so maybe he's come over here and time for him to enjoy an independent life, and he might come over, gain some maturity and come back, and I hope he comes back and dominates Australian rugby in a couple of years' time.
Yeah, we spoke to him before he's left, and of course you're referring to tragic loss of his mother and the Douglas boys, Luke playing rugby league. Obviously they're wonderful fellas, and we wish Kane all the best, and hope he makes his way back. And I think the incredible thing is that your experience in those conditions would be valuable. I mean, we talked to Salesi Mafu from the Saints about he'd be available in a heartbeat to play for Australia if he could in the World Cup, and the way he's been going. I know all the Saints fans keep badgering us about how well he plays at tight head, and he's a monster there.
Yeah, he is. He's done really well, Salesi. I mean, he's been here, I think, 2 years now. This will be his second season. But to come in, and he's really anchored that scrum. I mean, it's quite a scrum anyway, really. You've got Corbisiero, Dylan Hartley, you got Big Celeste there, and you got Samu Manoa. I mean, it's a great pack to be involved in. He's done really, really well there. And again, it's another place that Australia could benefit from. Our tight head strength isn't probably as strong as other countries. So, I mean, if it's all dream, isn't it? But someone like Celeste would be great if we could have him available, because he's played in these conditions for a couple of seasons now.
And I think the good thing, Dean, is to have doing what you're doing, and even what we're doing on RuggaMatrix, because Ireland plays a big part of us as well. I mean, just because you're in the Premiership, this will be a big show in terms of audience, is that you've got to show respect for the game around the world, because it does vary, and it's easy for someone in good conditions to say that why don't they play an expensive game? But as you see, and you talked about before, the celebration of the contact zone in those intimate moments is also huge in the UK, because you have to play that way sometimes. But when the weather clears up, I mean, you see some spanking rugby in those Heineken Cup games.
Yeah, you really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think come over here, and I think you're a little bit ignorant, perhaps. Well, maybe ignorant's a bit strong, but I mean, you sort of live in your own bubble down there in Australia, I think, sometimes. And I think, certainly I was guilty about that. I mean, you think the Premiership is, and wider into Rubbo, into top 14, you think it can be a little bit dire, and 10-man rugby, as I was speaking in. But when the time's right and when the weather is good, the rugby can be really expansive here, can be of a very high quality, and you see the quality of players and the quality of skills that the outside backs have. They've got a lot to offer when the time is right, but you do have to have the adaptability and the ability to play two games, and there's certain strengths and there's certain certain fun in doing that as well.
And that has to happen come the World Cup. And what we're seeing is an island side, maybe they're fairly clinical last couple of games in the Six Nations, but an epic match coming up at Aviva Stadium on Sunday between the top two teams in the Six Nations, England v Ireland. I mean, how do you see that playing out? Our old master defence coach is there, Les Kiss, Mummy, and he will have something special ready to go for England, and you know, England will have something special as well. They're building okay as well. These two teams are going to grow the extra leg when it comes to the World Cup later in the year, but for now, it's Six Nations glory.
Yeah, this match will most likely decide the Six Nations, you'd think. Huge match. Both teams, through Kissy and through the work the English have done, both very strong defensive sides. But it probably will be the quality of attack that will get the job done in the end, or the quality of set piece. So one of those aspects will decide upon this game. I think that's how I see it. I think if you look at the form of these guys of late, Ireland certainly weren't expansive in their first game. But they get the job done. They're a good, as you say, clinical side. Coached very well through Kissy, and through having a Kiwi coach always helps as well, I think. And then the English have a really stable coaching environment, have been for a long time. They seem to develop a good culture, and I think not only in terms of this Six Nations, but you go forward to the World Cup, these two will be right in the mix. I think you're looking at teams that could easily be quarterfinals, semi-finalists, close to home. Will have an absolute mountain of support behind them. The entire country's behind them. So it'll be a really telling match, and I'm really looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, and the other matches, of course, Scotland hosting Italy, and France hosting Wales. Now, Wales they've had their moments, but they just can't get across the line. What are your thoughts on Wales?
Yeah, I think you look at their side, and they're a great side on paper. I mean, they really are a backline that anyone would be really pleased to be involved with. Do you think that perhaps their tight five is not giving them enough to get the ball to the wonderful backline they have? I mean, I think watch that game when they played England a couple of weeks ago. It was a cracking match. The quality of the hits that were going in, the sustained pressure that both sides were trying to build on the opposition. It was a really good quality match. But in the end, the sort of the weight and the power of England's forward pack, particularly their tight five, did the job in the end. And so I think that's a continual point for Wales to work on and to build on. But if you look at the pool the Australians are in World Cup time, they're a big threat, aren't they? And this is going to be a hell of a pool to try and get out of.
Yeah, it is going to be difficult. Now, I know it's you obviously keep in touch with Australia, but in your beloved team Sydney Uni will be kicking off soon in the Shoot Shield. There's a bit of developments there too. Unfortunately, the competition's taken a backward seat with television coverage and doubt and funding as well, which is disappointing. But the Waratahs, after a shaky first up performance against the Western Force, tactically probably erred, bounced back with a pulsating game against the Rebels. That was just absolute thriller. So they're back on the board, and the Reds, after they were woeful in game one against the Brumbies, got pipped. The Brumbies got done on the siren with a penalty against the Chiefs. Crusaders had a heavy game as well. I mean, it's been a hectic start, and in the South African provinces as well, stuck into each other. So, interesting start, but I think Mummy, just summing it up, a couple of rusty teams already in 2015 and just sort of trying to find their stride.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is the basic summary, isn't it? I mean, the teams that were good last year will be good again. I don't see there's any reason why that won't happen. It's just taking a little while for the rust to get knocked off, and it's not normally like that way. Teams normally start pretty hot in Super Rugby. Crusaders decide that they can start a bit slow, but they'll come home strong. But you could definitely see the benefits that the Force and the Rebels have had from spending that time in the NRC together. I mean, they've got their cultures built. Both have had a couple of years with a coach now. So Foles and Tony McGann have had the side for a couple of years. So you're going to see development on that front. But I think particularly I think the Rebels have seemed to have come a leap forward this year. They certainly are offering quite a bit through the back row and through the centres through Mitch Inman looks in pretty good shape, and he's going to give them good go forward. But despite the Waratahs being really rusty in round one, they've got such a power game that when they can get that going, they're a really powerful side a really hard side to contain. And it was pretty nice to see KB get back in his stride last week and have a cracking game. One he'll remember for quite a while, I reckon.
Yeah, Curly Beale with a chip kick, and who was there to take it? Stephen Hoyles.
Yeah, the old ball. It's nice to see him go around, and it's so good to see him after having such a tough run, and it's good to see him going up there and still doing so well.
Yeah, it's a great story, isn't it? Was pretty much lost to the game until last minute trip to Scandinavia, and the surgeons.
Like we all do.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, why not?
Absolutely. No, it was good. It was a good yarn, and I'm happy to see him doing so well because he's a real footballer too. That's what I like about it. No one does hit and spin better than him, and I still think it's one of the most underutilised but totally valuable skill that a player can take into the contact zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not many people have mastered the hit and spin, particularly with not the hit and spin and the quick offload, which Halsey has definitely mastered. I mean, I think many years playing a bit of rugby league touch down there at Queen's Park, he's sort of mastered that. And he put Adam Fryer and Danny Badira style dummy half, and those two were quite a combination.
Yeah, obviously Halsey was a bit adverse to the too heavier contact, so that's probably spurred him on a bit, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, mate. Well, hey, I've been wanting to catch up with you for a while, and I was talking to Casho about it, but as you can see, Casho's here. What do you got to say, Casho? Yeah, the best thing he said all show, all 202 shows. But it's been great to catch up with you. Good to see you doing so well. Can we drop in with you a bit later in the year, mate?
Yeah, mate, I'd love to. I'd love to hear from you again, and we'll just give you an update on what's going on in terms of in Prem Rugby and the developments European Cup, and we'll get a greater idea of who's the strength in Super Rugby and who's wrapped up Six Nations by that stage.
All right, mate, and I guess you'll be keeping in touch with the uni results, Sydney Uni?
Of course, mate, always a student.
Once a student, always a student. Yeah, other tape, they do well. Not as good as Randwick, of course. All right, that's going to be ongoing through the year. Dean Mumm, captain of Exeter, congratulations on a great season so far. Top 4 at the moment in the Premiership. You've got quarter-final coming up in the European Challenge. So much to happen. We look forward to seeing you doing well with the Mighty Chiefs.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Thanks for having me.
All right, there he is, Dean Mumm, joining us from the UK tonight. We appreciate his time. Thanks very much for your time too, enjoying your company as we power on through this World Cup year. To Mark Cashman, thank you very much. There he is again. We'll see you next week, and maybe he'll be here for real next week.